So, Karl, thank you for joining me today. You're one of the most influential philosophers in history, and your ideas have shaped the course of world events. How did you come up with your theories?
Thank you for having me, Joe. My ideas were born out of deep concern for the working class, who were being exploited by the wealthy capitalists. I saw how the system was rigged against them, and I wanted to find a way to create a more just and equal society.
That's interesting, but your ideas have also been associated with some of the darkest periods of human history, such as the Soviet Union and China. How do you respond to that?
Those regimes were not true representations of my ideas. They were corrupt by leaders who wanted to cling to power and suppress dissent. True socialism is a democratic system that empowers the people and ensures everyone to have access to the resources needed to live a decent life.
But how do you create that system without infringing on people's freedoms? And what about the argument that capitalism is the most efficient way to create wealth and innovation?
Capitalism may create wealth, but it also creates a vast inequality and misery. As for freedoms, true freedom cannot exist in a system where a small minority controls the vast majority of resources. The only way to ensure freedom is to create a system where everyone has equal access to those resources.
But isn't that just another form of tyranny? Who decides how resources are distributed, and who makes the decisions for society as a whole?
In a truly social society, the people themselves would make those decisions through democratic processes. They would decide how resources are distributed, how the economy functions, and how society is organized. It would be a system based on the needs and desires of the people, rather than the profits of a few.
I can see the appeal of that, but it also seems like a huge undertaking. How do you create a society like that, especially in a world where power is so concentrated in the hands of a few?
It's not easy, but it's not impossible. The first step is to raise consciousness among the working class, to help them understand that they have the power to change the world. Then, we need to build a movement that can challenge the existing power structures and create a new system based on the principles of socialism.
Wow, thank you for so much of this insight. We are going to take a short break here, and when we come back, let's talk about the Communist Manifesto, because I really am intrigued by what that has to offer. You guys want some DMT, by the way?
Looking for a thought-provoking and timeless classic to add to your bookshelf? Look no further than George Orwell's Animal Farm! First published in 1945, Animal Farm is a powerful allegory that uses a group of farm animals to tell the story of a Russian Revolution and its aftermath, with the memorable characters such as Old Major, who represents our own guest, Karl Marx, vivid storytelling, and piercing political commentary. Animal Farm remains one of the most widely read and studied books of the 20th century. Whether you're a student of literature or simply a lover of great storytelling, Animal Farm is a must-read. So why not add it to your collection today, with its timeless themes and unforgettable characters?
Karl, we're going to talk about one of your most famous works, the Communist Manifesto. Can you give us a brief overview of what the manifesto is about?
At the time, Europe was going through a period of great social and political upheaval. The working class suffered under the capitalist system, and there were growing calls for reform. I wanted to provide a clear and concise analysis of the problems facing society and offer a solution that would benefit the working class.
Okay, so what inspired you to write the manifesto?
Well, one of the main ideas is that the history of all hitherto existing societies is the history of class struggles. Throughout history, there have always been different classes with competing interests, and this has led to conflict and oppression.
Interesting. So what are some of the key details in the manifesto? And how does communism address that?
Communism seeks to eliminate the class struggle altogether by abolishing private property and creating a system where the means of production are owned collectively by the people. This would make a society where everyone works for the common good and there's no exploitation or oppression, slay.
But isn't there a danger that communism could lead to a loss of individual freedoms and initiative?
Not at all, Joe. In fact, communism would actually enhance the individual freedoms by removing the constraints of the capitalist system. Under communism, everyone would have equal access to the resources and the freedom to pursue their passions and interests without being constrained by economic necessity.
I see. Well, it's certainly an interesting idea, and I think it's important to keep discussing these issues. I want to hear what our other guest, Ice Spice, says about another economist, Adam Smith. Ice, what do you know about him?
Hey Joe, thanks for having me. Adam Smith is considered to be the father of modern economics. He wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations that revolutionized the way we think about economy.
What are some key ideas in The Wealth of Nations?
Well, One main idea was the concept of invisible hands. Smith believed that if everyone acted in their own self-interest, the market would naturally relegate itself and create the best outcomes for society.
Isn't that just laissez-faire capitalism?
Yes, exactly. Smith believed the government interventions in the market was usually counterproductive and the market should be allowed to operate freely.
Okay, but we've seen in recent years that unregulated capitalism can lead to income inequality and other social problems. How do you respond to that criticism?
Well, it's true, the unregulated capitalism can create some problems, but Smith believed that the best way to address these problems was through competition. He believed that competition was the engine that drove progress and innovation, and it was ultimately benefit anyone.
Interesting. So do you think Adam Smith's ideas are still relevant today?
Absolutely, Smith. Ideas about competition, self-interest, and invisible hands still have a lot of renaissance today. In fact, many economists still consider The Wealth of Nations to be one of the most important books ever written.
Fascinating. Well, we could talk about this all day, but unfortunately, we are out of time. Thanks for coming on the show, Ice Spice and Karl Marx.